There is a plant growing in the cracks of your driveway right now. It is pushing up between paving stones, spilling out of vacant lots, threading through the edges of your garden beds, and quietly carpeting the disturbed soil at the corner of every parking lot in your town. You have walked past it 1,000 times. You have probably yanked it out of the ground with your bare hands and tossed it into the compost or the trash bin. Your local hardware store sells multiple chemicals specifically designed to kill it. Agricultural extension offices classify it as a noxious weed. And yet this same plant, this throwaway green that millions of Americans treat as garbage, contains more omega-3 fatty acids than any leafy vegetable ever recorded on Earth. It contains a long-chain omega-3 almost unheard of in land plants. It comes pre-packaged with vitamin C and E that prevent those omega-3 fatty acids from going rancid in your body. It outperforms a banana in potassium, gram for gram. It has lowered blood pressure and blood sugar in clinical trials. And it grows for free, on its own, with no irrigation, no fertilizer, and no human intervention whatsoever. Its name is common purslane, and the story of how the Western world forgot it is one of the most quietly devastating examples of nutritional amnesia in modern history. To understand what we have lost, you have to start with a name: Portulaca oleracea. Latin botanists call it that, but you will hear it spoken in dozens of languages, in dozens of villages, markets, and kitchens across 6 continents. In Greek, it is androchne, sometimes glistrida. In Mexico, it is verdolaga, soft and quick on the tongue. In Turkey, it is semizotu, the fat herb. In India, it is kulfa. In China, it is ma chi xian, the horsetooth herb. In rural Lebanon, it is bekel. The plant is so universal that linguists have used its names as evidence of ancient trade routes, because no matter how far you travel, somebody knows it. Somebody is eating it. Somebody learned about it from a grandmother who learned about it from her grandmother. It is one of the most distributed wild plants on Earth, and it has fed human beings for at least 3,000 years. In the late 1980s, a Greek-American biochemist named Artemis Simopoulos sat down at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland, and began running fatty acid analyses on a strange specimen. Simopoulos was investigating something that had been bothering her for years. She had grown up in Greece eating wild greens, foraged off rocky hillsides by her mother and grandmother, and she had a hunch that the food of her childhood differed from American supermarket produce in ways that might explain why traditional Mediterranean populations had such low rates of heart disease. She began collecting samples of horta, the Greek family of wild greens, and one of those samples was purslane. The results that came back from the laboratory were so unusual that she initially questioned the equipment. Per 100 grams of fresh leaves, purslane contained between 300 and 400 milligrams of alpha-linolenic acid, the parent omega-3 fatty acid. That works out to roughly 4 milligrams of omega-3 per gram of wet weight. For comparison, spinach, the green that American nutritionists hold up as a paragon of healthy eating, contained only 0.89 milligrams per gram. Red leaf lettuce contained 0.31 milligrams per gram. Buttercrunch lettuce contained 0.26. Purslane was beating the most respected leafy greens in the produce aisle by a factor of 4 to 15. Simopoulos had stumbled onto the highest concentration of omega-3 fatty acids ever documented in any leafy green vegetable on the planet. But the discovery did not stop there. When her team examined the fatty acid profile in finer detail, they noticed something even stranger. Buried in the lipid analysis was a small but unmistakable peak corresponding to eicosapentaenoic acid, EPA. EPA is the same long-chain marine omega-3 that fish oil capsules are sold for. Land plants almost never contain EPA. That is the entire reason fish oil dominates the supplement industry. The plant kingdom synthesizes the short-chain alpha-linolenic acid molecule, and animals, particularly cold water fish, convert alpha-linolenic acid into the longer EPA and DHA molecules that the human brain and heart actually use. Flax oil, the most famous plant omega-3 source on the planet, contains no EPA. Walnuts, chia seeds, hemp seeds, all of them contain no EPA. They contain only alpha-linolenic acid, leaving your body to do the conversion work itself, an inefficient process that yields under 10% EPA from any given amount of alpha-linolenic acid. And yet here was a humble, succulent weed growing wild across the planet, containing detectable amounts of EPA in its leaves. It was an anomaly. It was the closest thing the green world had to a free fish oil substitute, and it was sprouting in driveways from Athens to Albuquerque. The implications of this finding rippled outward. If purslane contained ALA at 10 or 12 times the concentration of conventional greens, and if it also delivered some preformed EPA, then a person eating a generous handful of purslane each day would be raising their blood EPA levels through two pathways simultaneously. The conversion of ALA into EPA, while modest in percentage terms, is reliably triggered by sustained high ALA intake. Several human feeding studies confirm that elevated dietary ALA does measurably raise EPA in red blood cells and plasma over time. Combine that with the small dose of preformed EPA arriving directly from the leaves, and you have an effect that no other green vegetable can match. The plant essentially short-circuits the entire fish oil supply chain. It is a free, growing, self-replicating source of the same nutrients the supplement industry has built billion-dollar empires around. Now consider the second piece of the puzzle, the piece that ought to make every nutritionist who studies omega-3 stability pause and reconsider their assumptions. Omega-3 fatty acids are notoriously fragile. They oxidize. They go rancid in the bottle. They go rancid in the body. The free fatty acid PUFAS in fish oil capsules are so prone to oxidation that consumer testing labs routinely find rancid product on store shelves, and the rancid molecules generate inflammatory byproducts that can do more harm than good. To prevent this damage, your cells use vitamin E and vitamin C as a kind of biological shield, intercepting the oxidative attacks before they can shred the omega-3 molecules. Purslane, almost as if it were designed by a thoughtful chemist, comes preloaded with both. 100 grams of fresh purslane delivers approximately 12 milligrams of alpha-tocopherol, the active form of vitamin E. The same 100 grams contains roughly 27 milligrams of vitamin C, nearly half of an adult daily requirement. It contains 1.9 milligrams of beta-carotene, the precursor to vitamin A. It contains 15 milligrams of glutathione, more than spinach delivers per equivalent serving. The plant is not just a source of omega-3 fats. It is a complete antioxidant package, a self-protecting nutritional system that delivers the very molecules your body needs to safely metabolize the fatty acids it provides. Then come the minerals. 100 grams of purslane contains approximately 494 milligrams of potassium. A medium banana, the textbook potassium food, contains about 422 milligrams in its entire fruit, and most bananas weigh more than 100 grams of edible flesh. So gram for gram, purslane edges out the banana. It contains 68 milligrams of magnesium, the master mineral that participates in over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body, from muscle relaxation to glucose regulation to nervous system signaling. It delivers 65 milligrams of calcium, 2 milligrams of iron, and a reliable amount of folate, the B vitamin essential for cell division and pregnancy nutrition. A single handful pulled from the cracks in your sidewalk is packing the kind of mineral profile that supplement companies bottle, label, and sell for $30 or $40 a container. The skeptics, of course, will demand evidence beyond nutrient analyses. Carrots also have lots of vitamins on paper, but it does not follow that eating carrots cures anything. So let us turn to the clinical trial literature, because here is where the story moves from interesting to remarkable. In a double-blind randomized trial conducted on type 2 diabetic patients, researchers administered purslane extract to one group and placebo to another over an extended period. The purslane group experienced a statistically significant drop in systolic blood pressure. They also experienced a measurable decline in hemoglobin A1C, the long-term blood sugar marker, by approximately 0.8% in responders. That is a magnitude comparable to some prescription diabetes medications. In a separate crossover trial, participants consuming 10 grams per day of purslane seeds saw their systolic blood pressure decline meaningfully against their own baseline. A meta-analysis pulling together 6 randomized controlled trials confirmed that purslane consistently lowered fasting blood glucose and reduced triglyceride levels across diverse study populations. These were not pharmaceutical doses. These were modest daily intakes that any person with a backyard could grow themselves at no cost. So how exactly did the Western world manage to bury a plant this valuable? The answer is both simple and infuriating, and you can read it in the corporate filings of the agricultural chemistry industry. Purslane cannot be patented. It cannot be controlled. It cannot generate recurring revenue. It reseeds itself, producing tens of thousands of seeds per plant, and those seeds remain viable in soil for decades, sometimes a century or more, waiting dormant for the right conditions to germinate. From the perspective of an agribusiness corporation, this is not a feature, it is a problem. A plant that gives itself away for free is the enemy of every business model built around the sale of inputs, supplements, and bottled extracts. So the chemistry industry has spent decades developing herbicides specifically formulated to wipe purslane out of cornfields, soybean fields, lawns, and roadsides. Glyphosate, atrazine, dicamba, and multiple commercial preparations exist with the express purpose of eradicating this plant from American agriculture. Billions of dollars are spent each year on the destruction of a leaf that costs nothing and could lower blood pressure, raise omega-3 status, and feed entire populations through difficult times. The economic incentive is to keep it dead. The economic incentive is to keep you ignorant of it. Meanwhile, the supplement industry generates approximately $50 billion annually in global revenue from omega-3 capsules, fish oil tinctures, krill oil pills, and algae-derived alternatives. The entire premise of that industry rests on the assumption that you, the consumer, cannot get enough omega-3 from your food. That assumption is dependent on you not knowing about purslane. Imagine, for a moment, that every American backyard contained a plant whose daily harvest was nutritionally equivalent to a serving of cold water fish. Imagine that this plant was perceived not as a weed, but as a salad green, sold in farmers' markets, included in supermarket spring mixes, served at restaurants alongside arugula and spinach. The fish oil industry would face an existential threat. The herbicide industry would lose one of its most reliable revenue streams. The agricultural extension services that have spent a century telling farmers to spray, kill, and burn this plant would have to reverse 100 years of public guidance. There is no organized conspiracy at work here. There does not need to be one. The market simply has no incentive to inform you about something it cannot sell, and the regulatory bodies have no incentive to disrupt the businesses that fund their lobbying networks. So the plant continues growing in concrete cracks, ignored, pulled, sprayed, composted, while the rest of the world goes on knowing exactly what it is. Because this is the strange truth at the center of the story. The rest of the world never forgot. The ancient Greeks called purslane androchny and ate it raw, dressed simply with olive oil, salt, and lemon, often crumbled with feta cheese to make a salad that has not changed meaningfully in 2,000 years. Pliny the Elder, the Roman naturalist who wrote one of the earliest comprehensive encyclopedias of natural history in the 1st century CE, devoted passages to purslane and recorded its medicinal applications. Persian physicians of the medieval Islamic Golden Age prescribed it for heart conditions, inflammation, and what we would today call metabolic disorders. Mahatma Gandhi included it in his ascetic vegetarian diet, recognizing its nutritional density during a time of personal experimentation with minimal eating. Turkish home cooks fold it into salads alongside tomatoes, cucumbers, and yogurt. Lebanese and Syrian families chop it into fattoush, the bright herb and bread salad that defines summer eating across the Levant. Mexican cooks toss verdolaga into pork stews, into tacos, into bean dishes, where its slightly sour, slightly salty crunch cuts through the richness. Indian families in the Punjab and Maharashtra cook it as a saag with mustard seeds, cumin, and chili. The plant has held a continuous, unbroken place in human cuisine across thousands of miles and thousands of years in every culture except those that subordinated their food traditions to the logic of industrial agriculture. To begin reclaiming this knowledge for yourself, you first need to be able to identify the plant correctly. Purslane is unmistakable once you know what to look for. Its stems are smooth, fleshy, often tinged red or pink, and they store water in their tissues like a desert succulent. The leaves are teardrop-shaped, also fleshy, with a slightly waxy surface that catches the light. They grow in alternate clusters along the stems, often forming dense rosettes near the ground. In late summer, the plant produces small yellow flowers no bigger than a pencil eraser that open in morning sunlight and close by midday. The whole plant tends to grow in low, sprawling mats radiating outward from a single central taproot, creating a living carpet that hugs the ground rather than reaching upward. When you bite into a fresh leaf, you should taste a bright, crunchy, slightly tart, slightly salty flavor with a subtle lemony tang that lingers on the tongue. It tastes a little like spinach crossed with watercress and a touch of citrus. The stems, leaves, flowers, and even the seed pods are all completely edible. There is, however, one critical caveat. Purslane has a look-alike, and that look-alike is poisonous. The plant in question is called spurge, and it grows in many of the same disturbed soil environments that purslane prefers. To the casual glance, spurge can resemble purslane, particularly when both are young and small. The differences, however, are absolute and easy to learn. Spurge has thin, wiry stems, never the fleshy, succulent stems of purslane. Spurge leaves grow in opposite pairs along the stem, while purslane leaves grow in alternating clusters. Most importantly, when you snap a stem of spurge, it bleeds a milky white sap. Purslane's juice is clear, watery, and slightly mucilaginous. The milky sap test is the absolute foolproof identification rule. Snap a stem. If it oozes white, walk away. If it weeps clear, you are looking at purslane. There is no exception to this rule. No edible portulaca will produce milky sap. This single check protects you completely from the only meaningful danger of foraging this plant. Once you have identified your purslane and confirmed its safety, the kitchen possibilities open up immediately. The simplest preparation is the Greek classic. Wash the leaves thoroughly, since they often grow close to the ground and collect dust and grit. Tear them off the larger stems, retaining the tender stem tips. Toss them with extra virgin olive oil, a pinch of salt, fresh lemon juice, and crumbled feta. That is dinner, eaten alongside crusty bread. From there, the variations multiply. Blend a handful into a green smoothie with apple, lemon, and ginger for a mild, lemony note that lifts the drink. Stir purslane into soups during the final 2 minutes of cooking, where the heat softens the leaves without destroying their bright flavor. Fold it into omelets with sautéed garlic and onion. Mix it into grain bowls of farro or quinoa with herbs and lemon vinaigrette. Pickle the stems in vinegar and salt for winter storage, the way Eastern European households have preserved them for generations. Toss it into a pot of pinto beans during the last 15 minutes of simmering. Mix it into yogurt with chopped cucumber, garlic, and dill for a Turkish-style cold soup. The plant is forgiving and adaptable, and there is essentially no way to ruin it. A reasonable concern, particularly for people who follow nutrition discussions closely, is the question of oxalates. Purslane, like spinach and beet greens, contains significant amounts of oxalic acid, a compound that can bind to calcium and contribute to kidney stone formation in susceptible individuals. If you have a history of calcium oxalate kidney stones, you should approach purslane with the same moderation you already apply to spinach and Swiss chard. For everybody else, healthy adults with no specific contraindications, a daily handful is well within safe ranges. If you want to reduce the oxalate content further, the traditional method is brief blanching. Pour boiling water over the leaves, let them sit for 2 minutes, and drain. The hot water leaches a substantial portion of the oxalates, while the leaves retain most of their omega-3 content, since the fatty acids are bound up inside cell membranes that water cannot easily extract during such short contact. The benefit to risk calculation for almost any adult comes out overwhelmingly in favor of regular consumption. The agricultural reality of purslane is almost magical when you stop to consider it. The plant is drought tolerant to the point of indifference. It loves heat, thriving when soil temperatures hit 85 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the very conditions that wilt most leafy greens. It germinates quickly and reaches harvestable size in just 6 to 8 weeks from seed. It requires no tilling, no fertilization, no irrigation in most climates, and no pest control. Insects rarely bother it. Diseases rarely afflict it. It reseeds itself prolifically, scattering seed across the surrounding soil before frost kills the parent plant in autumn, and those seeds emerge enthusiastically the following spring without any human intervention whatsoever. A single plant can produce up to 240,000 seeds in a single season. Those seeds, once dispersed, can remain viable in the soil for 30 to 40 years, sometimes longer. There are documented cases of purslane germinating from seed banks that had been buried for over a century. This means that in many American yards, purslane is already there, waiting in the soil, suppressed only by the chemicals being sprayed to kill it. Stop spraying for one season, allow the soil surface to be lightly disturbed by raking or shallow cultivation, and the plant will return on its own. It does not need to be ordered, planted, or coaxed. It is dormant beneath your feet right now, and it will come back the moment you stop poisoning it. This brings us to the deeper context, the larger nutritional picture in which the purslane story unfolds. The modern American diet contains a catastrophic imbalance between two families of essential fatty acids. Omega-6 fatty acids, found abundantly in industrial seed oils like soybean, corn, sunflower, and cottonseed oil, dominate processed food. Omega-3 fatty acids found in fish, seaweed, certain plants, and grass-fed animals have declined dramatically in modern diets. Anthropological research suggests that ancestral human populations consumed omega-6 and omega-3 in roughly a 1-to-1 ratio. Today, the typical American consumes them in a ratio of 15-to-1 or even 20-to-1, an extreme imbalance that drives chronic low-grade inflammation throughout the body. Inflammation is not just a symptom, it is increasingly understood as a root mechanism underlying heart disease, type 2 diabetes, depression, autoimmune disorders, neurodegeneration, and many cancers. Restoring the omega ratio is one of the most important nutritional interventions available, and yet it is also one of the hardest because cold water fish is expensive, often contaminated with mercury, environmentally fraught, and unappealing to many eaters. Fish oil capsules cost $40 a bottle and frequently arrive at your door already partially oxidized. Algae-based supplements are gaining traction but remain niche and expensive. Meanwhile, a plant capable of materially shifting your omega-3 levels grows free and abundant on every disturbed patch of soil from Maine to Mexico. It is ignored or actively destroyed by the very people it could be feeding. There is a particular sadness in this knowledge that has nothing to do with conspiracy theory and everything to do with simple cultural amnesia. 3,000 years ago, the people of the Mediterranean, North Africa, the Middle East, and South Asia knew this plant intimately. They knew when to harvest it, how to prepare it, how to preserve it, how to use it medicinally. They passed this knowledge down through countless generations, mother to daughter, father to son, neighbor to neighbor. In every culture except those dominated by industrial agriculture, that chain of transmission has continued unbroken. Indian grandmothers still walk into their courtyards and pluck kulfa for the evening meal. Greek farmers still gather glistrida from the rocky margins of their olive groves. Turkish villagers still cook semizotu in clay pots over open fires. Mexican abuelas still buy verdolagas at neighborhood markets and stir them into pork stews on Sunday afternoons. The wisdom is alive and well across most of the world. It is only the most industrialized food cultures, the United States, Canada, Australia, parts of Northern Europe, where the chain has been severed, where the plant has been demonized, where the knowledge has been deliberately erased. Reclaiming this knowledge is one of the simplest, cheapest, and most meaningful nutritional acts you can perform. It costs nothing. It requires no specialized equipment, No expensive supplements, no membership in any movement. It requires only that you walk outside, learn one easy plant, and stop killing it. If you have a garden, stop weeding the purslane and start eating it instead. If you have a lawn, designate a corner and let it run wild for one growing season. If you live in an apartment, look at the parking lot, the alley, the construction site at the end of the block, the abandoned planter outside your building. The plant is already there. It has been waiting for you. The act of bending down, plucking a handful, washing it, and tossing it into a salad bowl is a small but radical reversal of 2 centuries of industrial nutritional decline. It is a way of stepping out of a system that has profited from your dependence on packaged foods and bottled supplements, and stepping back into a much older system in which your nourishment came directly from the soil under your feet. Free for the taking, no middleman required. There is one more thing worth saying, because it cuts to the philosophical heart of this story. The supplement industry will not tell you about a plant that cannot be sold. The seed industry cannot profit from a plant that reseeds itself for free. The chemical industry will continue to manufacture products designed to eliminate it. The agricultural extension services will continue to classify it as a pest. The dietary guidelines committees, funded in part by industries with no incentive to recommend uncontrollable wild foods, will continue to ignore it. None of these systems are going to suddenly reverse course and start celebrating purslane. The plant has been waiting, quietly, persistently, beneath the chemistry and the marketing and the institutional indifference, for individual people, one person at a time, to remember it and to act on that memory. This is how all real food sovereignty begins. Not with permission from the authorities, not with a press release from the FDA, not with a celebrity endorsement. It begins when you walk outside, recognize a plant you have walked past 1,000 times, and decide, on your own authority, to eat it. So tomorrow morning, when the sun comes up and you step outside to grab the mail or take out the trash or walk the dog, look down. Look at the cracks in your driveway. Look at the edges of your garden, the corners of your lawn, the disturbed strip of soil between the sidewalk and the street. Look for the smooth red stems, the teardrop succulent leaves, the tiny yellow morning flowers. Snap a stem. Confirm the clear watery juice. Pinch off a leaf and chew it slowly. Taste the bright lemony crunch, the salty tang, the unmistakable freshness of a plant that has been quietly building omega-3 fatty acids in the cracks of concrete while you were buying capsules at the pharmacy. That taste is 3,000 years old. It is the taste of every grandmother who ever fed a family from the edges of an olive grove. It is the taste of a food system that exists outside of every market, every patent, every corporation, every dollar bill. It has been waiting under your feet this whole time. Bend down, reach out, bring it inside. The most ordinary weed in your yard is, in plain biochemical fact, the most extraordinary leafy green on the planet. Forget the fish oil. The answer was growing in your driveway all along.